Here we are again, Super League fans worldwide. It is another one-on-one with the manager. And this time, again, as you can see from the background behind me, we have the man who has, well, what's the best way of saying this? He has shocked the world and is currently sitting just 1 point off the top of the table. We have the one and only Mr. PR Greeves of Lokomotiv Boston. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Evening, Fivey. How are you? I'm good, good. Still smart enough to get today, but I'll get over it.
I am very well. Thank you very much for asking. Let's have a look at some of the stats before we go into looking at the team. Defending is clearly the promising side of things for you. You've got the second best defensive record in the league. Your issue is that you have the fewest goals inside the top 10 at the moment. But as we said, you're still, technically fourth in the table, but just a point off the top. You must be fairly happy with how things are going.
Yeah, I am really happy, actually, especially how I was written off at the start before a ball was even kicked. And I always set my team up to win. There's no game that I go into thinking, oh, I'm going to get smashed here. So it's just one of those. You just got to, I take each game as it comes, and I do little tweaks here and there. And I think I used my whole squad as best as I can. I don't think a lot of the managers have been. I think a lot of people are still stuck in their, I've got 14 players who are good, the rest are shit, and not trying different players in the squad. So that's all I can say, really. I'm happy with my progress. I'm gutted that I haven't capitalised on what I still feel yesterday, I'd be lying if I did it. I'd be lying if I wasn't happy if I wouldn't have got a win in that game. I know you had the better of the first half, but when you concede one shot on target, you expect something a bit better. But looking back on the other games, I feel I should have beaten Bostock when I played them at home, and I should have beaten Fulchester. So they were points lost rather than a point gained. And looking at it like that, if I'd have had those points, I'd be well clear by now. But in a humble beginnings with this side, and the only way is up, the way I look at it.
Well, picking on things you've said there, it leads me into two of the questions I actually wanted to ask you. Firstly, it was how it felt to be written off so early. But second, if we go right back to the start, what was it, about the Super League that made you want to get involved this year?
Well, I put an interest in early in the beginning of the last season. Was when I first contacted Martin about any possibilities, and it was just I saw some people were a bit disgruntled. I do enjoy it. I love Champman. It's basically the game to play, and it's what I've been doing all these years. I had a bit of a hiatus away from it as some of my children got older, but with everything come in, I've just fell back in love with the game even more. And just to be able to, it's the level of competition. I play my game, playing home saves, I generally don't often play past 3 seasons because I get tired of winning everything. So it's that little bit of competition that you don't normally get, and it's the best of the best, isn't it? You've got the best players available on the game. You've got the best managers about putting it. Not everyone can play Whip-Wob Capello every week with Batistuta marking your keeper. So it's what it is. I like the banter between everyone. Everyone's all light-hearted. No one ever gets too nasty. But that's what it's all about. And that's why I wanted to be part of it, really.
Good. It's nice to hear. As someone that's been involved for so long, I do like to hear the stories of of those that come in sort of newer and fresher. Let's go back to the squad. I think it's fair to say Effenberg's been one of the surprises of the season so far. Almost every week on comms when he plays, people are like, he's not Super League quality, yet he's bossing 8 and 9 out of 10 performances. Barthez has been identified as your key player. When he plays well, you get a good result. He's top of your average ratings. But you have, as we alluded to, the attacking side of things has maybe been a struggle for you. You have nobody inside the top 14 goal scorers, nobody inside the top 14 assists. So
it only takes one goal to win, Sophie. It only takes one goal to win.
It does only take one goal to win. With regards to your team, is there anyone who, I've asked this to all the other managers, anyone who's surprised you with the levels they've got to, or anyone that hasn't quite reached the level you hoped yet?
I think the entire team hasn't reached the level I've hoped yet. It's, as you say, my highest. I've been shithousing results. I fully admit that. It's like I started off trying to play. My favoured formation was attacking. It paid off the first few games. I was top of the table, and then I got, I think it was 3 draws in a row, and then Jens spanked me. So then I reverted away from that to a bit more of a possession-based defensive lineup, and I've been with that since. I've only lost once, and I've lost one, drawn one, and won 3 since I changed my formation. So I can't really complain about that. I've only lost 2 games this season so far, so it's all positives really. As I say, I think I've drawn too many home games because I think home games are going to pay off in this league. You've got to win your home games.
Well, let's have a look at these games, and it was a home game, and it was the one that you've lost. So in last night's festive fixtures, you did come unstuck 1-0 to the Devils, a game that you've already briefly touched on. But it's not done you too much of a disservice in terms of the league table. So are you putting that down to a blip? Is that a game, as you've kind of alluded to, that you needed to win, or is it just, it's just one of them things and you'll turn it around next time? You've got Dudley away next. So again, you're going to look to win and turn it around quite quickly.
Yeah, I'm looking for a win against the Tinkerman. You got Claudio Ranieri in charge of Dudley Hill. So he said he's put a video out earlier saying he's changing it again. So I don't know if his players think they're coming or going. They don't. Even when I had a little bit of a tinker on my side, I only really moved my wingers back to wing back and dropped a 1 striker back. I seem to think that players don't like being chucked around everywhere. Because if you play a different formation every single game, you want to get players in playing in the positions that you're going to be playing them in and trying to get numbers out of them. Otherwise, you don't know what your team is, what you want to play. But yeah, as you said earlier, I'm only 1 point off the top. If I'd have beat you yesterday, I'd have been 2 points clear. So there's no. Is a loss. They're going to happen in the Super League. You're playing the best players. You've got to take it on the chin. You can't expect to win every single game because it's not going to happen.
Well, listen, let's have a look at the league as a whole, and I'll see if you have slightly bigger testicular fortitude than Jamie did earlier, where he wouldn't get off the, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but he wouldn't get off the fence and actually pick a top 6. Let's run through the teams to see what you think about them so far, and then at the end, I'll ask you to say, as it stands, who will finish in the top 6. Given your position, I think it's only right we work top to bottom. So, Fulchester, the top 3, as was alluded to, only separated by goal difference, but Fulchester are currently the team at the summit. What have you made of their start when, similar to Devils, their manager continues to play them down?
See, Mac put me on record. I was the only person talking to him over transfers. I got Franker off him. There's a few more players that I really like in his squad. There's, well, there is at least 4 players that I would have in my 24. But I see my team. I don't see my team as like what I said earlier. I don't see my team as 114. I see my team as a 24 that I can pull into. So when a player gets into my 24, and I'm experimenting a bit with moving in and out of reserves, but I see a few in that squad that would make my 24 and make it stronger. So I think he does play down his side a lot. But when you got Ryan Giggs playing the way he is, and you've got Veron who can turn it on whenever he wants, and he's got a wealth of strikers that will put the ball in the back of the net for him, you can't really knock it too much.
After the result last night, Devils now sit second. Much like yourselves, they've been tagged as something of a surprise package, not so much because of the squad, which people keep trying to pile the pressure on, saying that the squad is right up there in terms of quality, but because of the manager's failings in the past. Do you see it as a surprise? And is it something you can see the Devils managing to maintain going into the second half of the season?
I think it is. You've got a solid side. And I think with Ryan touched on it last night, with you playing the game more now, instead of just spectating the Super League and sending your formations to Martin, you're getting to do a bit of tinkering, doing a bit of the Alf home saves to find out what is working. And I play home saves. There's no point playing Champ Man if you don't play home save. And I think people are lying if they're not trying formations out and then trying to convert it, because you can't go in blind, because otherwise you're just throwing darts at the wall and hoping they stick. So yeah, I think you've benefited by playing the game more, and with the depth throughout your side, you did surprise me with a few alterations to your side. But if you find what I personally think would be your strongest 11, would be a very hard team for anyone to beat in this league.
Bostock were or have been leaders for a long time. They're still joint top, but 2 defeats in a row sees them sitting third. Can you see a collapse coming, or will they turn it around quite quickly?
I think they'll turn it around and sort of level out. They went off like a train, really. Not compared to other Super League seasons, but compared to everyone else. They were workmanlike, but then I think a couple of injuries might have hampered him. And then you've got, he had the good problem of having 2 strikers, having Vieri and Smith in form. But it's just one of those. He's got to try and, when he gets a settled lineup and a settled formation, excuse me, he'll be ready to, I think he'll stay around the top spots just by how workmanlike his side is.
And of course, the next round of Super League fixtures sees Bostock play Devils, so that'll be a game you'll be keeping a close eye on, I'm sure. We then skip over yourselves, as we've already spoken about you, and in 5th place is Haggis Hunters, a team that have been, considering their prominent position in the table, a team that have been quite heavily criticised for style of play. Is that fair? What do you think of what they've achieved thus far?
I think, not to throw any stones in glass houses, I think they've been quite lucky with quite a few of their results. And when they do lose, they've managed to find something to blame. And they complain about getting a lot of stick from outside sources of the club. But when you win 2 games in the top of the league and then start crowing, you're going to get all the pelters. So I think it's one of those. You can't say at the start, before anyone's kicked a ball, that we've got the best squad, we're going to win the league, and then expect everyone to clap their hands and rejoice behind you.
The final team sat inside the top 6 currently are the Sloths. Is that a team you've been impressed by? Are they overachieving, or are they about right for the quality of squad they have?
I think they're one injury away from collapse. I feel they're rather reliant on Mr. David Collins, and if anything happened to him, I can't. They've had players chip in with goals elsewhere, but without Collins, I can't see them clicking, especially the way their formation is at the moment.
A question I'm asking every manager at the moment when we're doing these one-to-ones relates to Gazelles, who sit one position under the dotted line at the moment. A lot of teams pick them as favourites, and although they've had some good results and some very inspiring performances, it's still not quite been good enough despite the table being tight. Are they struggling with the pressure of being top?
I think a little bit, but then I also think, as I alluded to earlier, I don't think Craig has used the depth of his squad well enough. At the start of the season, he had Clover injured, but he was playing Agahawa up front, and I know he's got strikers in his squad that people have expressed interest in. So they're not, and he's got strikers in his reserves that I know would play well in certain teams. Like Mario Yardell would be my choice instead of Agahawa up front first season. So he might have. I think he's a bit reluctant to go deeper in to his squad. It's like when Jeremy's got injured, he's played Delivio, or he's played Abel Xavier, but he's got players like Michael Ballack and Emre. A slight positional change. They're far better players than what those two are. So I don't think he's using the best of his squad outside the Galacticos that he's got.
And what about Churchtown, who are just below them?
Kieran's pulling up trees with the squad that he's got. I believe that he actually has a worse squad than I have. And he's done his transfer policy where he wants players that he's never had before. And he knows enough of the game to be able to get some results. And he's got Big Toe Madeira who will score goals for him. So it's just getting those. It'd be interesting to see how long Aymar's injured for, to see if that'll affect him. But there are a few players in that squad as well that I would still have I'd try and get off him every day. You've still got Javier Zanetti, you've got Patrick Pawe, you've got Okoronkwo next season will be a wall wherever he plays. So he's got players there, but it's just getting the best out of them around.
Hull's Vikings are next up, and what Jamie and I discussed earlier was the fact that they seem to have spurts where they have that big losing run, the big winning run, then a losing run again, and they're not drawing any games. As strange as it sounds, is their inability to draw a game likely to cost them? Or can you see them winning enough games to force a top 6 place?
They are the hot and cold team of the league, aren't they? They've got a very good squad, but if they can't grind out a result when they're struggling, that's going to be an issue. Because we know that watching past iterations, you can miss out by 1 point onto the playoffs. So if that's one draw that you pick up now instead of a loss, it'll affect you in the long run.
Next up is Ledbury, a team who I've spoken to Scott and Jamie about, perhaps expecting them to be higher in the table. They proved a point, I think, last night with the win. Can you see them kicking on from that now?
I can. He's moved away from his one at the back. He's done some more trials. I think how tight the league is now. I know Macca's having a bit of success from one at the back at the moment, but away from home, I don't think one at the back can last in this league by the way that the home teams are dominating in second halves. So, and the He wasn't playing one at the back because he had no other good defenders. But Uliano and Nesta could be the best defensive partnership we've got in the league. And he's got Johan Vogel. Morientes is a very underrated striker. And when Montella comes good, that everyone knows he will eventually, he's got goals in that side, and he's got the defence in that side as well that will back him up. So I can see Hodgie kicking on from here and being a threat to the rest of the league.
We're now just outside the top 10, and next comes the management trio at Dragons. They got quite a big, important win last night as well. Can you see them kicking on, or is it just going to be another season of mid-table mediocrity for a Jamie Hopkins team?
It depends on what head of the three-headed dragon is in charge. I know they all have an input, and I think it can never be who's shouting loudest that week. But if they get things rolling, they've got a good enough squad, and bringing Zauri in is an inspired move, really. Yes, they've lost Nedved, but if he doesn't fit in your preferred system, he's a dead weight. So he's a good player, a quality player. I tried to get him myself. I put a big offer in for him, but unfortunately they went for Zauri, which I can't blame them. And they've got a perfect balance with it. I'd say they're up there with the fullbacks now, with Zauri and Balmer on each side. And they've got Zielis, who's pulling up trees in the centre. They've got a defensive spine there. They just need to get Big Taribo and Marcus Babbel playing well to support the rest. And with Batistuta up front, you can see him kicking on if they get another couple of wins.
Next team in the list is your opponent's next time out, Dudley. Where you are the best performing of the new managers. Unfortunately for Steve, he's currently the lowest ranked of the incoming managers. Is it a fair reflection on what they've done so far this season, do you think?
He was share-housed a little bit at the start, but then I think he's tinkered a bit too much. He's brought transfers in for a set formation, and now he's getting rid of that formation already after 2 games, which was a win and a loss. So I think a bit of slight tinkering is good, but he is turning into the Claudio Ranieri of the league. I think
I did see a tweet from their account earlier after he watched the interview with Jamie Hopkins, and he said that was 2 interviews in a row where people have said about him tinkering. You're now going to make it 3 in a row. Is the message starting to sink in, do you think? And if there is some settled or a settled side or a settled formation, can you see them having a squad capable of making a push?
Well, he's got a very good squad. As Ryan alluded to in the chat, he's got 3 marquee players already. And some would say, I would class Roberto Carlos a marquee player over Totti. And he's got a Ronaldo that's got the good random stats. So he's got a Ronaldo that will actually score, because I think a bit like it touched on earlier, and I was surprised because sometimes he's got a random heading stat, which is I feel is quite important for a striker, and he's got a high heading stat for a Ronaldo, which is very rare. So having that sort of player in your squad is only going to benefit you. He's his top scorer, but I do think he's got to play him up top personally. But that's my opinion on it. But a team that's got Ronaldo, Totti, Roberto Carlos, Edgar Davids, Hernan Crespo, he's nearly out Galactico and Gazelles. So it's just knitting them all together.
The penultimate team for you to look at is Alf's Astatine. Alf notoriously is in and around the top 6. He's infamous for his late runs towards it. But one of the comments in the earlier interviews is that the league is that much stronger this year, with all the teams being quite equal, that it's not going to be possible to put that consistent run at the end of the season together. So is Asta sort of where they belong as a squad, or or can he match what he's done before and make a play for it in the second half of the season?
You never know what you're going to get with Alf. It's the one thing that you do know when you're playing him that you can prepare for, that he's playing narrow. And I think that can harbour him a little bit, hold him back. Because if you're playing a side that you know is going to be playing narrow, because I think that's what's covered Jens at the start. It's you can set your team up well to attack it. There's spaces that you know that are going to be there. So if you set up your middle, if you're solid in the centre and attack on the flanks, you've got it. And I believe it's like if your CDMs have a good day against Alf, you've got the victory because your wingers have got full flare, full reign on the flanks, and you only need one play. I believe you only need one part of your team to play well against him to pick up a win. Unfortunately, if he mixed it up a bit and played wing backs one game just to keep people on their toes, I think it would open a few people's eyes. But at the moment, I think he's going to hang around that area of the league. Unfortunately, nothing against him. He's one of the top managers in the league. But if you're stuck playing one system all the time, you're going to get found out eventually.
The final team is the last team to pick up a victory. They finally did it last night. Northern a very talented squad on paper, much like their previous BTEC squad, in my opinion anyway. They did prove at the start to be difficult to beat, which is why they've got so many draws against their name. That win, I believe, takes them 3 points away from being off the bottom. A lot of people saying you can't even write them off if they have a good second half of the season. Can you see BTEC making their way up the table? Sorry, not BTEC.
Northern Burn. I can see him rising, but he's got to get.
Are you still there? I think we just have a slight technical.
Keep the
1 second. And we are back with Mr. Greaves. His technical fault has gone. He can go back to deciding why Northern Burn are only just about going to get into the top 10, possibly.
He's got a very good squad. I think he's got to settle on a formation that he trusts and go from there. He's got very good players in his team. There's a lot of them that I would like for my own. And that's it, really. He's got one, I'd say, the form player in the league at the moment in Thierry Henry. He's pulling up trees playing at AMC, which I would have never played him at, but he's got like 6 goals in his last 3 games, hasn't he? Or something silly like that. So he's playing well. If he keeps him firing and keeps it solid at the back, he can't do no wrong, really.
So the final question, as I asked everyone else so far, in order, who makes the top 6?
Top 6, I think Fulchester at the top, Bostock second, I'll finish third, Devils fourth, Leddersford fifth, and Haggis sixth by 1 point.
Very, very interesting prediction there. All that's left to say, Mr. Greaves, is thank you very much for taking time out your evening for this. It's appreciated by me and the Super League fans worldwide. And I look forward to speaking to you again in the not too distant future.
Yeah, speak to you soon, Fifey.
Take care, pal.
Thank you. See you later, mate. Bye.